They never warned you that some truths don't arrive gently. Some truths don't come dressed in comfort. They arrive sharp, unsettling, and sometimes painful, not because they want to hurt you, but because they refuse to lie. Today's discussion is one of those truths. Not a truth meant to attack women, not a truth meant to excuse men, but a truth meant to expose the raw psychological observations made by one of the most controversial philosophers in history, Arthur Schopenhauer. His ideas still provoke anger, agreement, discomfort, and reflection even centuries later. And before you react emotionally, understand this clearly. This is not about hatred. It's about understanding how human nature was interpreted through a brutally honest philosophical lens. Welcome back to Mind Unmasked, the place where we strip away illusions, challenge comforting narratives, and explore uncomfortable ideas not to divide, but to understand ourselves better. Today, we're diving into Schopenhauer's perspective on female nature, not as an absolute truth, but as a mirror reflecting how one man observed human behavior in his time, shaped by biology, society, and survival instincts. Whether you agree or disagree by the end, if you're honest with yourself, you'll realize this conversation forces you to think deeper than surface-level morality. Schopenhauer believed that human beings are driven less by noble ideals and more by unconscious forces, especially desire, fear, and survival. At the core of his philosophy was the idea of the will, a blind, relentless force pushing all living beings to exist, reproduce, and preserve themselves. According to him, men and women express this will differently, not because one is superior, but because their biological roles historically demanded different survival strategies. This is where his views on women became controversial, not because they were casual insults, but because they stripped romance away from gender dynamics and replaced it with raw observation. In Schopenhauer's view, women were closer to nature, closer to instinct, and more aligned with the survival needs of the species. He argued that because women historically bore the greater biological cost of reproduction, their psychology evolved to prioritize security, stability, and protection above abstract ideals like honor or romantic loyalty. From his perspective, what many people interpret as emotional depth or sensitivity was actually strategic adaptability. This idea alone unsettles modern audiences because it challenges the romanticized version of love and replaces it with evolutionary logic. He believed that men often love idealistically, projecting fantasies onto women, while women love pragmatically, evaluating what ensures survival, status, and continuity. In his eyes, women were less interested in truth for its own sake and more interested in what worked. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. To Schopenhauer, deception was not moral failure, but a tool of nature. The same way animals camouflage themselves, he believed humans, especially women, developed social camouflage to navigate a world where physical power was not their strength. This is where many people misunderstand him. Schopenhauer was not saying women were evil or manipulative by choice. He argued that manipulation, emotional intelligence, and social maneuvering were compensatory adaptations in a world dominated by male physical force. In other words, where men used strength, women used perception. Where men confronted, women navigated. And where men destroyed directly, women influenced indirectly. He also claimed that women tend to live more in the present, guided by immediate emotional realities rather than long-term philosophical abstractions. He saw this not as stupidity, but as alignment with life itself. According to him, men built systems, ideologies, and philosophies, while women ensured life continued within those systems. That difference, he argued, created endless misunderstanding between the sexes. Men accused women of being inconsistent, while women accused men of being emotionally detached. Schopenhauer's harshest criticism came when he spoke about romantic love. He believed love was not a spiritual union, but nature's trick to ensure reproduction. From his perspective, attraction blinded people, especially men, convincing them they were choosing freely, when in reality, they were being chosen by biology. He argued that women, consciously or unconsciously, understood this mechanism better, which made them appear calculating or selective. In his view, once the biological goal was fulfilled, disillusionment often followed, which explained why love so often transformed into resentment. This idea resonates uncomfortably with many modern experiences. People enter relationships believing in eternal passion, only to find priorities shift, emotions cool, and conflicts arise. Schopenhauer would argue this is not personal failure, but the collapse of illusion. Love, he claimed, was never meant to be permanent bliss, but temporary motivation. The tragedy is not that love ends, but that people believe it shouldn't. He also believed women were more focused on social reputation and relational security, while men were more focused on achievement and abstraction. Again, not because of moral difference, but because survival demanded it. In his era, a woman's safety depended heavily on her social environment, making reputation a form of protection. Even today, you can see echoes of this in how social validation, approval, and relational influence still matter deeply in many women's lives. Critics argue Schopenhauer ignored individuality and their right to some extent. His philosophy spoke in patterns, not people. But patterns exist because they repeat often enough to be noticed. The danger is not observing patterns, but treating them as destiny. Schopenhauer described tendencies, not rules. Understanding this distinction is what separates thoughtful analysis from blind belief. One of the most misunderstood aspects of his philosophy is that he believed suffering was universal. He was not attacking women alone. He believed men were delusional, ego-driven, and enslaved by desire. He saw both sexes as victims of the same blind will, just expressing it differently. In fact, he believed men were often more foolish because they mistook desire for meaning, ambition for fulfillment, and possession for happiness. So why does his critique of women still feel sharper? Because it strips away emotional idealization. Society teaches men to see women as moral beacons, emotional saviors, or sources of purpose. When that illusion collapses, the emotional backlash is intense. Schopenhauer's philosophy doesn't attack women, it attacks the fantasy men build around them. If there's one lesson to extract from this, it's not mistrust, bitterness, or resentment. It's clarity. Understanding that attraction is not destiny, that love is not guaranteed permanence, and that emotional behavior often follows survival logic can protect people from unrealistic expectations. Clarity does not kill love, illusion does. Modern psychology, evolutionary biology, and relationship research echo parts of Schopenhauer's thinking, even if they soften the language. Mate selection, emotional bonding, and attachment styles are deeply influenced by evolutionary pressures. Ignoring this doesn't make relationships better, it makes heartbreak more confusing. At Mind Unmasked, we don't present ideas to tell you how to feel, we present them to help you see more clearly. You don't have to agree with Schopenhauer. You don't have to adopt his worldview, but dismissing uncomfortable ideas without understanding them keeps you trapped in emotional reactions instead of intellectual growth. The real danger isn't brutal truth. The real danger is comforting lies that leave you unprepared for reality. When people understand human nature more honestly, They stop taking behavior personally and start responding intelligently. They stop chasing fantasies and start building boundaries. They stop demanding perfection and start respecting reality. In the end, Schopenhauer wasn't asking you to hate women or distrust love. He was warning you not to confuse desire with destiny, affection with permanence, or attraction with truth. When you remove illusion, what remains is not cynicism, but freedom. Freedom to choose consciously, to love wisely, and to walk away without bitterness when illusions collapse. If this discussion made you uncomfortable, that's a good sign. Growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from confronting ideas that challenge how you see the world. If it made you think, reflect, or even disagree thoughtfully, then this video did exactly what it was meant to do. This is Mind Unmasked, where we don't sell fantasies, we explore reality. If you value honest conversations that go deeper than surface-level motivation, make sure you stay connected. Truth doesn't always feel good, but it always sets you free.